Everybody, JC here with another T&I toy review, and today's review is in association with JediInsider.com, your #1 news source for everything Star Wars. For today's review, we're going to be taking a look at the new Star Wars The Force Awakens 3.75-inch Kylo Ren figure from Hasbro. Now this figure is part of an assortment called a Build-A-Weapon assortment, and so you collect other figures in this line, and you basically can take the piece that it comes with and create a strange looking weapon. Now the figures come packaged on a card back, and you get some really nice artwork. Up in the top corner you get the head sculpt of Kylo Ren, which you see in all the Star Wars Force Awakens product that's being released, and you also get the Star Wars The Force Awakens logo. But then you get some really nice artwork of the character off to the side, in this case Kylo Ren holding his lightsaber and sticking his other hand out like he's using the Force. And then the figure's clearly displayed, and it shows you a little picture of the Build-A-Weapon that you would be creating once you have all three figures. The back of the packaging, it shows you how to put together all three of the pieces to create the weapon. Now this is just some funky weapon that they've created for the toy line. I don't think it's anything that actually appears in the movie. They've color coordinated the back of the card back as well. So basically to create this weapon you've got to get the Captain Phasma figure and Bespin Luke Skywalker figure from Empire Strikes Back, along with Kylo Ren, and all three of these figures will have the green on the card back. There's other figures in the line that have other weapons that you can build, and they are also color coordinated, so you'll have yellow and blue, and I forget what the other colors are, but basically you want to match up the colors for the specific weapon if you're interested in trying to create that thing. We also have a brief bio for the character in multiple languages up in the top now, but basically it tells us that Kylo is a dark warrior strong with the Force. Now it seems like they deliberately call him a dark warrior as opposed to a Sith, though my understanding is a Sith is anyone who has the Force that uses it essentially for evil. So to me that makes him a Sith. I don't know if the wording of Dark Warrior is something specific key to the movie, or if it's just somebody being clever with the writing for the bio. I guess time will tell. Alright, so let's get this figure open and take a look at what's inside. Okay, so here's a look at the figure outside of the packaging, and it's a very basic figure, 5 points of articulation with like all the figures in this line. If you want a more articulated 3.75-inch Kylo Ren, you're going to have to wait a little while until the Walmart exclusive Black Series version comes out. Now that one will be more expensive. It's going to cost between $12 and $13, whereas this one costs around between $7 and $8. So if you want more articulation, again, you'll have to wait and pay a bit more when it does actually come out. But this figure overall, I mean, for what it is, a 5 points of articulated figure, it's not bad. It's got pretty nice detail. So first of all, we'll just look at this Build-A-Weapon piece first, and it's just white plastic with some dark gray plastic. It's got these little spikes on the side, which they've painted some lime green on, as well as on the handles. But I don't really know what it's supposed to be. These white handles do fold closed, so it does have some moving pieces to it. Again, I don't really know what it's supposed to be. But if you want to create the actual weapon, you'll need the other two figures and the other two pieces. And he can hold this thing, whatever it is, in his hand. You can kind of, to me it kind of almost looks like some kind of a sensor or scanner or something. So if you wanted to, I guess you could make it pretty much whatever you want, but to me that's what it kind of reminds me of, is like a scanner or something. So maybe it's like a Jedi scanner or something, I don't know. And it does come with a little instruction sheet, so once you have the other two pieces, it shows you how to put it together. Even as a combined thing, it really doesn't look like much of anything, so I don't know what it's supposed to be. It doesn't describe what it is on the instructions or anything. It just tells you need the Phasma and the Bespin Luke Skywalker figures, but there's no description on what this little doohickey is actually supposed to be. So besides that, the figure comes with his lightsaber, and that basic kind of translucent plastic like we see on all the lightsaber blades. It's kind of a not a super dark red, but a lighter color red, and there is some sculpting on the blade. It's not just a smooth blade, so you've got give it that kind of crackly effect, which I like that. And then it's got the little translucent red pieces that come off to the side, and the rest of the hilt, there's not a whole lot of paint detail on the hilt. It's just a silver metallic paint, and you can see a little bit of sculpting with the line work to give it a little detail, but overall it's very basic on the hilt. And he can hold the figure or the lightsaber in both hands, so he can put it in his left hand and he can put it in his right hand. Now of course this figure only has 5 points of articulation, so he can't really do much with the lightsaber other than move it up and down, unfortunately. And the detail on the figure I think is actually pretty nice. I like the sculpting pattern that they've done on the costume of the figure. It's kind of got a checkered, almost checkered type pattern, but it's definitely got some nice detailing. Paint applications are very simple. It's just black. There's no kind of shading or anything. He's got some silver on his mask, but otherwise the figure is just black. He's got a little bit of silver on his belt buckle, but otherwise it's just black. He's got this little shawl piece that's done with a kind of vinyl, you know, that kind of vinyl material like we see with capes and stuff. And you can, if you want, you can pop the head off and take that off. The head's just on a ball joint. Now with that piece on, it does limit his arm movement, which, you know, is basically just rotation. But when you have that piece on, you can't really rotate his arms all the way around. If you want to get more rotation, well, I should say on his right arm he can't really rotate because of that piece. His left arm you can still rotate even with that on. He doesn't have any no wrist articulation with these, no midsection articulation. Basically he can do his leg forward. Now I do kind of like how they've done this with the skirt piece that he wears. They split it in half, and so they've actually just sculpted it onto the leg. So when you do his leg forward you can see his pant leg on the inside, but it doesn't, you know, it's not limiting the movement of the leg forward at all. So I kind of like how they've kind of cut that in half, so he can do his leg forward. No knee articulation, no ankle articulation of any kind. Again, just 5 basic points of articulation, and then 2 peg holes on the bottom of his feet. So this figure stands at just a little bit over 4 inches tall. He's pretty much in scale with other figures, you know, that have been released throughout the years for Star Wars. So here he is next to one of the Darth Vader figures that we've seen released, and they're about the same height. So, and Kylo Ren I think is on the taller side like Vader was, so you know that seems about right. Here he is next to the Inquisitor that Hasbro did for the Rebels, and Kylo is definitely a little bit taller than the Inquisitor. Here's one of the other new Force Awakens figures, the Flame First Order Stormtrooper, and again the Stormtrooper is a bit shorter than Kylo Ren. Here is the First Order TIE Fighter pilot that comes with the new Force Awakens TIE Fighter, and again Kylo is a bit taller. Here's a comparison with a snowtrooper, one of the snowtroopers Hasbro's released over the years based on Empire Strikes Back, and again Kylo's a bit taller. And here he is next to Bespin Han Solo, and again Kylo is taller than Han. And for one more comparison, here he is next to one of the Jedi Luke Skywalkers that have been released by Hasbro, and Kylo is definitely taller than Luke. Be interesting to see if these two fight in the movie at all. Okay, so that's my review, but before I wrap things up, I wanted to pose a question to you all out there watching, and that is, how important is articulation to you for a Star Wars figure? And I'm going to keep it specifically to Star Wars, mainly because Star Wars has been around for years and years, and honestly, throughout the years, the amount of articulation has varied a great deal. In fact, I would say there's probably more or less articulated Star Wars figures out there than more, highly articulated figures. Unlike, say, like the Marvel Universe line, which has always been very articulated from the get-go, hasn't been obviously been around nearly as long as Star Wars, but that line, started out as a highly articulated line. But that's not the case with Star Wars. I mean, Star Wars started in the Kenner days, and this is a Kenner Boba Fett figure, and this figure has the exact same amount of articulation as this Kylo Ren figure. And so, even other figures that have been released over the years, like this Wedge X-Wing pilot figure, it's got a little more articulated, it's got a waist swivel, but still it doesn't have any knee joints, it doesn't have any elbow joints, no wrist joints, it's very basic articulation. We have had other higher articulated figures, like this Bespin Han Solo, definitely has swivels at the elbows, and it has elbow joints and knee joint swivels at the knees and stuff. So, we've definitely seen more articulated Star Wars figures over the years, but my question is, how important is that to you for a Star Wars figure? Now, I gotta say, based on my observations of how quickly these things move off the shelves, it doesn't seem to bother a lot of people. I know I hear a lot of complaints online about articulation, but when it comes to actual sales, these things seem to fly off the shelf. The Force Awakens figures, definitely have flown off the shelves over the last few days. And even like the Rebels figures that Hasbro's been releasing, which again has only the 5 points of articulation. I haven't noticed that these have been sitting on shelves too long. The question is, how important is it to you? If you're a parent, how important do you think it is to your kid? I mean, as a kid, playing with Star Wars, I don't really remember ever going, man, these figures suck because they don't have elbow joints or they don't have knee joints. Now, as an adult collector, I definitely like to see my figures have more posability. And, for cool lightsaber poses, they don't need to be super articulated, but, an elbow joint so you can bend his elbow, or a swivel at a wrist so he can turn his lightsaber would be nice. But again, I have to wonder, how important is it really to the kids? And even for the adult collectors, how important is it for a Star Wars figure? So definitely, take the, and keeping in mind, like I said, if we could get a $7 or $8 figure that's highly articulated, then I'm sure all of us would say that's what we want. But unfortunately, in today's market, that's not feasible. So the trade-off to more articulation is you've got to pay more. As I said, we're going to get a Kylo Ren figure with more articulation in the 3 1/4 inch Black Series line that's going to be a Walmart exclusive. But that figure is going to cost between $12 and $13, as opposed to the $7 and $8 that this costs. So, what is more important to you? And when we announced the news of the Walmart exclusive Black Series line, I saw a lot of people say, "There's no way I'm paying that much for a Black Series or for a 4-inch action figure," which is why Hasbro and other companies are moving away from the more articulation with these smaller scale figures. They can get away with, they can sell a 6-inch figure with lots of articulation and it costs $20, but people don't seem to bulk that much at a $20 6-inch figure. But you start talking $12, $13, $14, $15 for a 4-inch figure, and people definitely, you start hearing people say, I'm not going to pay that much. So I definitely would like to hear from you guys what you think. How important is the articulation, and is it affect, have you given up Star Wars because of the lack of articulation, or does it really not bother you that much? And if you're a parent with kids, or if you are a kid, how important is it to you, to enjoy being able to play with the figures? So definitely chime in. We'd love to hear from you. We'll have a full gallery of images for this figure up at JediInsider.com. And as always, like I said, leave a comment. Let us know what you think. If you're so inclined, please like the video. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. And until next time, I'll catch you later.